Hello, today we're going to talk about word families. What's a word family? Let me explain. A word family is a word that has different spellings based on the part of speech. In other words, maybe the noun form is spelled a certain way and the verb form is spelled a little bit differently. The adjective is a little bit different from that. Altogether, those are a word family. We're going to start for this one, we're going to use the word different. Let's get started. The word different. It has a different spelling based on the part of speech. For example, different, that's the adjective. Difference is the noun form. Differ is the verb form. Different, again, adjective. And differently is the adverb form. Today, we're going to look at how to recognize which form to use in a sentence. And also, sometimes when you look at a word, we're going to give you some ideas of how to guess what part of speech that word is. Let's start with the noun form difference. Difference, well, first of all, what's a noun? A noun is a person, place, or a thing. And in a sentence, it answers the question, what? So if you ask the question what, and the answer is going to be a noun. So what does a noun do in the sentence? It could be the subject of the verb. So if you said the verb and said who or what did the verb, the answer is going to be a noun. Could be the object of a verb. So if you say the subject and then the verb and ask who or what, that's going to be a noun as the object of the verb. Could also be the object of the preposition. Like if I have the preposition in and I say in what, the answer to that question is going to be a noun. Let's look at Linda and Deepika here, and we can look at how a noun works in a sentence. First of all, as a subject of the verb, we have our sentence, one difference is their height. I have is their height. Is my verb. Well, what is, and that is difference. So there I'm using the noun form difference as the subject of the sentence. Here's another example sentence of the noun as subject of the verb. Our differences make the world interesting. What makes the world interesting? Our differences. So I need the noun form of the word different in that situation. Here's an example of the noun as the object of the verb. I can see the differences between them. So if I say the subject and the verb and ask who or what, if the answer is that word you're thinking of, you need the noun form. So I can see the what? Differences. So I need the noun form differences, not different or differ. Here's another example of the object of the verb. We celebrate our differences. We celebrate what? Our differences. So that's the noun as object of the verb. Let's look at the noun as object of the preposition. I have the preposition as a result of. So I say the preposition and then I ask who or what. As a result of what? Our differences. We are stronger. So the object of a preposition is going to be a noun. So the noun form of the word. Prepositions can also come at the end of a sentence. For example, let's talk about our differences. I have the preposition about, and I say, about what? Our differences. So I need the noun form in that situation. Let's look at a couple of tricks to recognize if a word in a sentence is a noun. First of all, you can look at articles, a, and the. If you have those in a sentence and you ask the question, what after a, and, or the answer is going to be a noun. So in this sentence, it says the biggest blank is their personality. If I say the and I say the what, I know I need the noun form in that situation. Another way you can recognize if a word is a noun or not is if it's plural. So if I see one, two, three, many, some, that suggests there's more than one. And in English, only the nouns are plural. And you can also recognize it from the S at the end of the word if it's plural. But be careful, because sometimes we put an S on verbs, not because they're plural, but because they're singular. Here's an example so you can see how nouns can be plural and have an S, but verbs have an S and they're singular. I see three differences between them. Here you see three, and there's an S on differences, so I know, yes, that's a noun. But in the second sentence, Linda differs from Deepika, I have an S on differs, not because it's a noun, but because it's a verb, and my subject is Linda. So with present simple, and if it's he, she, or it is the subject, we put that S on the verb. So don't get confused by that. Sometimes you can recognize if a word is a noun based on the suffix or what's added at the end of the word. For example, difference with ENCE is a noun, and a lot of words that end in that spelling are nouns. For example, preference, offense, pretense, and defense. Another common suffix for nouns is the TION ending. So information, transportation, limitation, station, variation, all of those are nouns. And anytime you see that TION at the end of a word, it's probably a noun. Let's move on and talk about the verb form, or what verbs do in a sentence. First of all, a verb is the action in the sentence, and it tells us what the subject or the subject in the sentence does or what they do. For example, in my sentence, we have Linda's clothes differ from Deepika's clothes. So the differ is the action of what those clothes do. They differ. Some tricks to recognize if a word is a verb. One thing you can look at is, does it agree with the subject? In other words, does it have an S at the end of the word if it's third person singular, or the subject is he, she, or it? For example, if my subject is Linda differs from Deepika, that S there on differs with Linda, that would be show me it's a verb because it has an S based on the subject. Another way you can see if a word is a verb is if it uses some verb tense, like if it's Linda's hair differed from Deepika's hair last year. Last year tells me it's past tense, and then I see the ED on the verb, I can say, oh yeah, that's probably a verb. Now let's look at the adjective form, which is different, with the T at the end. What does an adjective do? It describes a noun, and the way it describes a noun is it says which one, what kind, or how many of that noun. For example, Linda has different clothes from Deepika. I look at the word clothes and I say, what kind of clothes? Different. So in that case, I'm describing the clothes, so I need to use the adjective form. Where do we see adjectives in a sentence? First of all, usually they come before the noun that they describe. Like in my sentence, it's different clothes. Different comes before clothes. However, it can also come after the verb be or another helping verb. For example, we can see in this sentence we have Linda's clothes are different. So different is the adjective form, and it comes after the verb be, which looks like are in this sentence, and it's still describing the clothes. Now let's look at adverbs. What do adverbs do? They describe a verb or an adjective in the sentence.
Uh, Usually for adverbs, especially the ones we're looking at, it's going to answer the question of how, or how someone does this verb. For example, in my sentence, Linda dresses differently from Deepika. So how does Linda dress differently? Dress is my verb in that situation. So I use differently with the ly to say how she dresses. One way you can recognize adverbs is that a lot of times, especially the ones that answer the question how, they end in ly. All right, today we talked about word families and the different parts of speech in a word family and how to try to figure out which word to put in a sentence or which form of the word to put in a sentence. We worked with the word difference, that's the noun form, differ, the verb form, different, the adjective form, and differently, the adverb form. If you want more practice with this, there's a link in the description for this video that will take you to a game, and the game gives you an opportunity to practice selecting the correct part of speech for some very common word families. So check out the game and let me know in a comment if you like the game and the video. Have a great day.